Hello, viewers. A very hearty welcome to RGU Podcast. We begin the RGU Podcast with a series of discussions on the history of universities in the world. We have titled this series as A Brief Journey Through the Intellectual History of the World. To begin the first episode in the series, we have with us Professor Alok Kumar Buragohain, Chairperson Academics, the Assam Royal Global University. Sir has served as a professor in the Department of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology, Tejpur University, and also as the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dibrugarh University. Sir, welcome to RGU Podcast. Very glad to be in conversation with you. I look forward to learning so much from you through this series of discussions. May I ask you the first question now? So, universities are so important to the progress of a civilization, but most of us hardly know about the inception of universities. So, sir, could you kindly enlighten us on the beginning and history of the universities in the world?
Thank you, Pranami. Um, as you said, universities play critical roles in the progression of human civilization. And when we talk about progression in human civilization, basically it relates to understanding of humanity about the world and the life. And that is possible through the culture of knowledge. And also, this involves transmission of knowledge, creating passion for knowledge, and questioning, critical questioning about what we do not know.
Right.
So these are the driving forces that bring in the culture of knowledge or education. Then education is the mechanism through which we deliver the knowledge that you gather, that you generate, and you intend to transmit to the people at large. Uh, Universities have been started with this passion, as I mentioned,
Passion.
with this passion for knowing the unknown and transmitting the known to the others. Uh, in fact, if you look at the history, before I take you to the modern universities, as you asked the question, modern universities, the beginning of modern universities, before that, let me tell you, the earliest universities, very interestingly, uh, had been established in the larger Indian subcontinent or in India itself. So
Nice.
that is something very great in realizing the fact that India has a tremendous knowledge heritage.
Exactly, sir.
Our heritage in knowledge and education system and process is so ancient that it is almost prehistoric. The first university historically is the Takshashila University, which was then in the larger Indian landmass
Yes.
and falls in in the political jurisdiction of now Pakistan, the Punjab part of Pakistan. That was the university which was established long back in in the fifth century before Christ, and it continued, flourished in between, and before it ultimately got the process of declination started and decadence set in, and it got um, completely disappeared in the 5th century AD. So you can imagine the time span. It was established in 5th century before Christ, continued before it became completely you know complete phase of declination in the 5th century AD. This is a long time span. And there, who were the teachers and what were they teaching there in that university, Takshila University? Initially, it started with study of the Vedic sciences, Vedic philosophies. It's all about the Vedic system and Vedic culture. But then later on, it also had started teaching about the Buddhist philosophies, Buddhist concept of life, and all that. So, and all those involves study of mathematics, study of literature, languages, um, law, economics, and all that. And some of the very famous, often referred to ancient scholars like Panini. He is famous for his linguistic contributions as a linguist, his grammar. He taught there in that university, Takshila University. Then Chanakya, the famous Chanakya, he was a teacher there. So you can imagine the legacy, the heritage of Indian knowledge system can be traced through the contribution of these immortal and universally acknowledged academic stalwarts, intellectual giants of India who started teaching, learning in the first university, if I may call it, the University of Takshila, which was established in 5th century before Christ. So that is the strength of Indian intellectuals.
Right, sir.
Right. And after that, many years later, in Bihar, present Bihar, near Patna, in a small town called Rajgir, the original name was Rajgriha, the University of Nalanda was established. And that was in the year 497 AD. And it was flourishing. Again, before it was completely destroyed by the invader Bakhtiar Khilji in the year 1197. So that is again a big span. And there, the intellectual strength and reputation of the University of Nalanda was so great that it attracted scholars, students from all over the world, including from the Middle East, China, Far East, Japan, and they came here to study. One of the very famous scholars who spent quite a bit of time at the University of Nalanda was Hiuen Tsang.
Okay. Hiuen Tsang.
At least in Assam, everybody knows
Yes.
Hiuen Tsang because he visited Kamrupa then and had written his treatise, his chronicles about his experience during his visit in Assam, along with his experiences in other part of the world, other part of the country. At one point in time, Nalanda had more than 10,000 students on its campus and also had more than 2,000 teachers from all over the world. So by today, even by today's standard, that was massive. And please remember, Nalanda was the first residential university in the world.
Okay.
Nalanda was the first residential university in the world. So what I mean to say while relating the history, the origin of these ancient universities is the fact that India has a huge, very rich heritage in the knowledge, in the domain of knowledge. So we are very rich. Our experience, our traditions in knowledge, culture of knowledge is almost prehistoric. So, but coming to the modern, from those days, from 1197, almost contemporary. By the time Nalanda was at its peak and it was demolished, unfortunately, by invaders like Bakhtiar Khilji in 1197, around that period, slightly before that, in Italy, there is a small town called Bologna. There, some passionate students, interestingly, got together and approached some knowledgeable, wise people as professors and appointed, very interestingly, as the professors and started an university called the University of Bologna.
Modern university.
That is the first medieval modern university in Europe.
Yeah, for sure.
And when it was just started, the modern university in Europe just started at the time when in Europe, you recall, this was the aftermath of the very famous, vibrant phase of what we call as the Renaissance. And that was another pinnacle of human civilization. So soon after, or alongside Renaissance, we found the establishment of the modern medieval university in Europe. That was in 1088, the year 1088. And remember, Nalanda was destroyed by Khilji in 1197. So I think they were almost operating simultaneously for some period of time.
Right.
So what I mean to again say that look at the antiquity of India's heritage in knowledge system. we are much ancient than the European systems or the Western system of education and knowledge. Now, this establishment of Bologna was so important and critical for the evolution of the modern universities in Europe and other Western countries, in the United States and other countries. We need to discuss about them briefly. Now, as I said, the University of Bologna was started with some students, passionate students, and it was the students who were at the helm of affairs insofar as the governance of the universities were concerned. It was the students who appointed the teachers, the professors. It was the students who actually decided how much salary the faculties, the professors would get,
That's
the
very
faculty
interesting,
members.
yeah.
That is very interesting. But then, and they had tremendous, they enjoyed, the students enjoyed, the professors enjoyed tremendous privileges because they were held in high esteem by the civil society. And no civil system like the police, like the civil courts, could try them or arrest them, any professor or any students, for any offense. And it was only the bishop who was the chancellor of the universities. The bishop was also the head of the church. They were tried separately. They could be arrested separately, not by the police. And the distinctive feature, interestingly, of the students of those days in Bologna was the gown they were wearing. Normally, we see the gowns being,
Only during
during the convocations. At the completion, on the completion of the graduation course, when the degree is conferred in a very ceremonial manner, we call convocation. During those days also, the convocations were held, and the gowns were already there. The students, it was like in a kind of a uniform. They had to wear those gowns, and on graduation they were given the caps.
Okay.
On completion. So, but then soon what had happened over the years, there was a great tension between the students in the universities and the members of the civil society in the town. So this is very famously known as the conflict between the town and the gown.
Okay.
Gown refers to the students. And so much so that at one point in time, later on, when other universities, European universities have been established, like soon after Bologna, we saw the establishment of the University of Oxford, University of Paris, University of Prague in Czechoslovakia, in Europe, and many other universities in Germany. There were a lot of tensions and violent clashes took place as a result of the conflict between the gown and the town, so much so that people had to lose lives in the conflicts, in the violent clashes. So thereafter, the civil society in the late 19th century realized that the governance of the universities should be taken over by the professors who are more mature and the members, the stakeholders from the civil society. And that is how we have seen the emergence of the collegial structures, which is central to the university's functioning, that have come and that have developed mostly in the European universities, especially in England. So this is in a nutshell, this is the beginning. But if you would like to know something more about the origin of universities in India, modern universities, then this will take us to the year 1857, when with the initiative of the British colonial rulers, we saw the establishment of three universities: the University of Calcutta, the University of Bombay, the University of Madras in 1857. And before that, we had some beautiful institutions, intellectual study centers. Like in 1829, we saw postgraduate level studies being offered in an institute called the Sirampur College in Calcutta, in West Bengal, Sirampur College. So that was very famous. Then we saw many other universities coming in, but that was the beginning, 1857 in India. Similarly, in other parts of the world, establishment of modern universities in China, to the best of my memory, this has started much later than those universities that have come up in India and Europe.
Okay. Sir, thank you for sharing all these with us. It's so interesting, and it's a matter of pride for us to be, as Indians, to partake such rich history of academia in our country, and also learning about emergence of modern universities and how students were at the helm of affairs and how the entire system metamorphosed into how we look at it today. And also the fact that 1857 is mostly synonymous it's usually synonymous with the first war of Indian independence, as we call it. But also the fact that three of the first universities modern universities in India had established, it's also so interesting to know about it. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to move to the next question. I would like you to elaborate on the characteristics of the basic tenets of modern universities.
The basic tenets of universities centered around transmission of knowledge initially. Universities were the places where knowledgeable people, known as the professors, held in high esteem, they used to give lectures, which we call as professing.
Professors profess.
Yes, professors profess the existing body of knowledge to the passionate learners. And in the process of this teaching learning, largely the universities were confined to the process of transmitting already known things, the existing
Right.
body of knowledge. This continued till about 1800, 1808, 19, during that period in Europe. I'm talking about Europe.
Okay.
Where we see the most of the evolution of the modern universities after the establishment of the university at Bologna in 1088, and soon after many universities have come. And these universities were sort of a replica of the original universities that we saw in Italy, and in that they were centers of higher learning where knowledgeable people, the professors, used to deliver lectures to the passionate learners. Teaching learning was at the center of focus. Um, uh, Soon, in terms of subjects, there were proliferations, diversifications, like there was an emphasis on the professional subjects like law, like theology, like medicine,
Right.
in different parts of Europe, in European universities. But having said that, but they were basically more concerned with transmitting the knowledge. But in 1808, a very renowned German academic and statesman, his name was Wilhelm Humboldt.
Okay.
He came up with the idea that universities cannot confine itself only to teaching learning. Universities of pre-existing knowledge or the past knowledge. Universities need to also generate new knowledge.
Right.
So that is the time with Wilhelm von Humboldt's proposition that universities must engage in research to generate new knowledge, because it is through research only new knowledge can be generated.
Right.
So since then, the other tenet, as you mentioned, in the university system, apart from teaching learning, the second part, that is research, came up. And so much so that teaching, learning, and research became the two sides of the same coin. And increasingly now, we are positioning research at the core of universities' mandates, because we have to generate new knowledge. There are so many unknowns. There are so many scopes for new interpretations of old things, even old concepts. We have to revisit them. And where do you do it? How do you do it? You do it in the universities, you do it in higher education institutions, and you do it through research, engagement in research. And what is research? Basically, research involves the same elements of Socratic pedagogies: looking at the world, observing, raising questions, deep thinking about the possible results of what we observe, in search of the answers to the questions that has come up to our mind, or that come to our mind through observation, then interpretations, analysis, and finally inference. And these also involve the empirical approaches of proving your hypothesis or disproving your hypothesis. This is the whole ancient Socratic pedagogy which started in the Socrates days of Socrates, way back in 450, 465 before Christ. So the same elements are involved in research that is central to our functioning in universities today. And please remember, over the years, even though Socratic pedagogy strongly prefaced that the teaching learning, for teaching learning, the central thing is to enable the students how to think critically. And Socrates himself said, very famously he said, I never taught anybody anything. Right? And he only said that I only made people think. And he could make people think by enabling them to look at the world, look at the life, raise questions, think deeply about the possible answers to what the questions that have come to the student's mind, the disciples' mind, and interpret and all that. So these are all also embedded in the Indian way of, ancient Indian way of learning. You know, the gurus used to give knowledge to the students, and the students would listen. And after some time, there was a part in the Indian traditional Gurukul system. You recall, I am trying to relate these to critical thinking, that students, the disciples, were asked by the gurus to meditate.
Yes.
And the meditation is nothing but a phase in the pedagogy which enables, which gives a scope to the students about critical introspection, critical thinking about what has been told and professed by the gurus, by the teachers. And then either accept it or go for debate. So debate and discussion are also critical aspects of teaching, learning, and research. Without questioning, without debate, you cannot have any transmission of knowledge or any generation of new knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Because it is discussion and debates are instruments that really set your logic straight. And they are the instruments or the tools, discussion and debate. They distill your knowledge. And ultimately what emerges is actual knowledge of the truth. So this is the beauty of the university's functioning. So it is through discussion and debate, which is the second part I said, after teaching learning. But then where do you do this discussion and debate? There must be some structural mechanisms. So this structural mechanism has been evolved largely in the British universities, what we call as the collegial structures. That is the third tenet. Or you can call it the second tenet. Teaching, learning, right? Collegial structures and research. These are the three things I'm saying. In the collegial structure, you have different bodies, different hierarchies at different levels, where teachers, students get together, they discuss about fixing the syllabus, framing the syllabi, they discuss, the debate, and ultimately they put it forward to the next level of structure. Could be from the Board of Studies, it goes to the Academic Council, from the Academic Council, again after discussion and debate, the proposals move up to the Board of Management or the Executive Council, and so on and so forth. This collegiality is very important in the functioning of the universities, because it is the collegiality which also fosters the spirit of democracy.
Democracy is the
Fosters the element of transparency. You discuss and debate transparently. You give equal opportunities to everybody who is taking part in the discussion and the debate. So these are elements which make up the culture of democracy. And for any civilizational growth or progress, it is through democratic process.
Right.
Right. So therefore, progression of university is directly related, you can say, through the progression of civilization, or the vice versa. When the civilization progresses, you know the universities are progressing. When the universities are progressing, the civilization is moving forward. So these are all correlated.
Right, sir.
And at the core of the university's functioning, this basic philosophies of democratic principles of functioning. And along with that, the the other element that have come, the other tenet that have come to the universities over the period of time is the value system. And the value system has been acquired largely from the American universities. So the values, what are the values? It is embedded in the democratic processes of discussion and debate in the collegial structure, in the critical questioning in research in universities. There, one has to also have the um, uh, attitude or approach for tolerance. It's a virtue. You have to accommodate the other point of view as well.
Right.
And you have to accept the correct one, and which are proved correct through logically derived discussions and debates. So these are all interconnected things. But when you ask me about what is called the basic tenets of universities, apart from teaching learning, which are central to it, research has come in, and during teaching learning, during in the process of research, we follow a structure of collegiality, which are based in value systems, and that enables progression of human civilization, creating human minds which are gradually emancipated from the boundaries of orthodoxy, old beliefs, and superstitions, and so on and so forth. These are all embedded in this process of discussion, debate, critical thinking, and so on.
Thank you so much, sir. For any system to thrive, to sustain, it must be democratic, it must be adaptive to its current times. And seeing the history of academia, it's very interesting how it has been adaptive, how it has been democratic. And some takeaways from sir's deliberation today would be terms like collegiality, democracy, research, development, critical thinking, debate, discussion. With this, we come to an end of today's deliberation. Looking forward to learning more from Sir in the future RGU podcasts. Thank you.